Hello and welcome to another video of mine. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection on the PlayStation 5 and also on the PlayStation 4 Pro. Now, the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection is a collection of two games, which has Uncharted 4, A Thief's End, and The Lost Legacy. Now, today in this video, we're just going to be taking a look at The Lost Legacy. Before I get started, I would just like to mention that this is not a technical review. I'm not a technical person, so kindly do not expect a technical analysis of these games. The footage of these games have been taken out straight from the consoles without any capture device, and the HDR setting had been turned off on both the consoles, the PS4 Pro and also on the PlayStation 5. I would specifically like to point out that these games may look very different in person due to the different TV or monitor models we use and the HDR settings done on them. So if you're wondering what's the point of making such videos, well, I'd like to share my personal opinion, give you the relevant information that I was able to get online, and I would also, most importantly, like to find out your opinion, your comments, so that it can be shared in the community of mine on this YouTube channel. And if you're in luck, and if we do have technical people in the community, then they can share their 2 cents on the game through the comment section, and hopefully the entire community can benefit out of it. With that said, let's get started. All right, so let's talk about the different modes that are available on your PlayStation 5, because these modes are not available on your PlayStation 4 Pro. So when you play this game on the PlayStation 4 Pro, you get a native resolution of 1440p, but the game technically runs at 30 FPS only. So how are things different now with the Legacy of Thieves collection? Now, you have three modes that you can actually choose from when you play this game on your PlayStation 5. Now, the first mode that you will get access to is called a Fidelity mode, where this game will run at a native 4K resolution. But in this mode, the game will target a 30 FPS as its frame rate. So you get top-notch resolution, but only at 30 FPS, which brings me to the second mode, which is called the Performance mode. Now, this particular mode targets 60 FPS as its frame rate, and that makes up for a very smooth, in fact, buttery smooth experience. And if you have a 4K television like I do, you will be able to experience this particular mode with an upscaled 4K resolution from a 1440p base resolution, just like the original PlayStation 4 Pro version, because in the base PS4, it ran at 1080p at 30 FPS. Now, finally, you have a Performance Plus mode, and in the Performance Plus mode, you get a staggering 120 FPS target frame rate, but the resolution drops further down to 1080p, which is very similar to the base PS4. But the base PS4 had 1080p, but 30 FPS. Here you're getting 1080p with 120 FPS. So three modes that you can choose from. In this video, in the next few, you could say comparison side-by-side videos, you will be able to figure out which mode works out the best when it comes to this game. So let's take a look at those screens now. Okay, now I started playing this game on my PlayStation 5 in the performance mode to begin with, because it was the closest when it comes to the resolution on the PlayStation 4 Pro. Closest meaning actually the exact same, because even the PlayStation 4 Pro ran this at 1440p. So I thought, it's a good place to start. So the PlayStation 5 in the performance mode, as I mentioned at the start of this video, runs this game at 1440p. And if you have a 4K television at home, then obviously the 1440p will get upscaled to 4K. But here's the difference. Instead of a 30 FPS frame rate, you get a 60 FPS frame rate in the performance mode. And that definitely makes a huge difference. Now, I've made many videos when I have spoken about the 60 FPS performance boost on the Xbox Series S as well on a lot of games. And personally, I always favor resolution over frame rates. But hey, if you can have the best of both worlds, then who can say no to that, right? Now, in this case, in addition to the 1440p, you are getting a 60 FPS. And that, personally, to me, is extremely appealing. And it looks way better with the 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5 for sure, without a doubt. Now, PlayStation 4 does not look that bad at all because resolution-wise, it's still the 1440p. And even if you talk about gameplay or the cutscenes like the one that you're watching right now, it's indistinguishable when it comes to the resolution. Of course, there are color differences because the color output, I believe, is slightly different. The PlayStation 5 may seem a little brighter in those darker areas as well. But hey, this also depends on your television and the settings on your television or your monitor, if you're playing it on a monitor. The lighting as well, I don't think there was any difference in the lighting. It was pretty much the same. Now, the character models, the character animation, the voice acting, everything is the same. So if you play this, back to back, I don't think you would even be able to make out much of a difference. That is, unless you slow the footage down, especially when it comes to these cutscenes. I think in the cutscenes, it's less apparent, the differences. It's only when you jump into the gameplay that you start seeing those differences. So if you were to slow the footage down, then of course, the changes or the differences will be more apparent. But in this case, well, not so much because I'm playing this at the normal speed. But yeah, I think the game still looks great on the PlayStation 4 Pro, and the PlayStation 5 with the 60 FPS just gets an added boost. When you see these videos side by side, even then, the differences are difficult to spot, but it's only when you zoom in a little, you actually will be able to tell the differences. Let me share one of the differences that I could easily pick out once I actually zoomed in. If you take a look at the cloth or the clothes that the character is wearing, then it looks like it's soaked. Whereas on the PlayStation 4 Pro, the clothes look dry. So when you zoom in a little, you will be able to make out, these small little differences. But from afar, you won't be able to really make that out. Apart from that, everything else pretty much looks the same. Now, for scenes like this, when you're driving around, moving around the place, of course, the 60 FPS makes a big difference because fast moving scenes, action sequences, they can all benefit from the extra frame rates. And the developers in this particular game have done a very good job because the 60 FPS holds up really well. In my personal time with this game, I did not notice any frame drops whatsoever on the PlayStation 5. In fact, even on the PlayStation 4 Pro, I remember playing this game way back when, and I don't think I had any performance issues. It ran a solid 1440p at 30 FPS, and here it's running a solid 1440p at 60 FPS. Now, if we take a look at the performance mode and compare that to the fidelity mode, which is the quality mode, but the game just calls it the fidelity mode. Now, side by side, also, it's difficult to spot the differences because I think the sacrifices that it makes to get the 60 FPS is so minimal that it's negligible, especially if you're playing from a distance. It's only when you really pixel peep, I think that's when you will be able to make out the difference because, hey, like I told you, I'm playing this on a 4K television at the end of the day, and the upscaled 4K is doing a very, very good job. It's decent, more than decent, I would say. But when you pixel peep, yeah, maybe, some of those places you will be able to figure out the differences. Now, in terms of the frame rate, definitely the difference is obvious. If you take a look at the performance mode, it's way, way smoother. But I've always mentioned this in my previous videos as well. For games like this, which are story driven, which have a lot of narrative elements, which have a lot of cinematics like cutscenes, etc., will it really make a difference? In my personal opinion, I don't think so, but that's just me. Of course, if it was a shooter, if it was like a first-person shooter, if it was a third-person shooter, and you had to shoot around all the time, then maybe yeah. But in a game like this, again, to me, it does not really matter, but that's just me. I'm sure, there are a lot of people who would kind of, take to the performance mode, and for them, it would make a big difference. Don't get me wrong. It does make a big difference. It definitely does, but not so much that it hampers my overall gaming experience on a game like Uncharted. So I would be happy even with the fidelity mode, because I'm getting top-notch 4K native resolution in the fidelity mode, and when I'm gaming on it personally, it looks fabulous, fantastic in fact. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to slow the footage down here a little bit so that you get an idea as to how big of a difference does the extra frame rates really make. So let's take a look at the same footage while I slow it down. Here, the fidelity mode definitely looks a little choppy because it's at half the speed, but the performance mode is super silky smooth. So this is where you will be able to make out the difference clearly when you slow the footage down. This is half the speed. This is where you can actually check the kind of difference the performance mode brings. Now we do have a performance plus mode as well, where you get 120 frames per second, but you have to sacrifice on the resolution, meaning that you're no longer getting 4K 1440p, but you're actually getting 1080p on your PlayStation 5. And it's not for everyone, because not every one of us actually owns a television or a monitor which can do 120 FPS. So in this particular mode, I personally did not really enjoy this because I don't know how much this footage will be able to capture what I wanted to communicate, but everything looks softer. So there's a touch of haziness when it comes to the performance plus mode, and it's not a mode that I would recommend because, again, I have always been in favor of resolution, and the performance plus mode clearly is the weakest of the lot when it comes to the resolution, because everything is soft, everything is hazy, and the textures, they don't really look great. So if I have to play this game, I think the performance mode does full justice, and the 60 FPS is a huge welcome, I would say, to the series of Uncharted, especially this particular game. And that's the mode that I would actually play this game on, which is the performance mode. Now, with that said, if you have liked the video, then do hit that like and subscribe button, and also hit that bell icon in case you want to get notified with all my latest videos. It does take a lot of effort to make videos like this, making these comparisons. So I would appreciate your love and support, and I would thank you in advance. So it's a wrap for this one, folks, and I will see you lovely folks in my next video. Until that time, I will say take care, stay safe, happy gaming, and may God bless you all.